What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, invading Louisville, Kentucky for Louder Than Life Festival, and today we are here with Scott of the Crystal Method. Thank you for your time today, man.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course, man. It's great to talk to you.
How's it going? This table's a little. We got this. We'll hold it down.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm doing really well. It's a little warm.
Yeah.
It's a little warm, but the music started. The people are here, and I think it's going to be a fun day.
Yep, it's going to be an awesome one. Your latest record is Trip Home, and what I'm curious is, do you take I feel like your music is very experimental, so do you take a new approach to every album, or do you try to maintain like a certain sound with every record?
I do. We do. Well, this one specifically was quite a change because my partner Ken and co-collaborator and co-conspirator for many years and the co-founding member of the Crystal Method retired with his beautiful wife down to Costa Rica. So going in, wanted to make an album that I wanted it to it started to come together. It felt like I wanted it to be like a score or a soundtrack to a movie that you wanted to see, because I realized that in the age of skip and plays and Spotify and that world where people kind of digest just individual songs, I felt by understanding the language of the new sort of television, that 45-minute, Stranger Things, where somebody can sit back, put their devices aside, put the idea of skip and let your ADD take a break and just sit and enjoy something. So I really had a great deal of fun sculpting and bringing that album forward with that concept. So making it feel like it was like a soundtrack or a score to something. So the next album, I have a completely different approach, and I have this concept that I'm working on. That's that I'll be letting people in more information will release on that as I get closer to releasing it. But yeah, for me it's definitely you gotta the challenge is still sound like the Crystal Method, but sound different than anything you've ever done before. And that's always, I think that for me and for every other band that I've come across, that's something that is a universal approach to it. You want people to understand that it's still you, but you want to give them something new and something exciting and something that they haven't heard before.
Interesting. This whole soundtrack concept, I actually find really interesting, because Two Steps from Hell is one of my favorite artists. I don't know if you've heard of them, but was this concept that you had in mind, was this like a preconceived idea? Did you go into songwriting mode saying, I want to do this, or did it just come kind of naturally after you laid down
that's
a few
good question. I don't know exactly if it was because I had been working so much in the studio on scoring. I had done some scoring. We did a television show a few years back called Almost Human, and a couple other things that had been living in that world for a little while. So I don't know exactly if it was just if it was a combination of being in that world for a little while, but also I wanted, again, not that we. I just had this idea. Okay, now I don't need to work something out with anybody else about what the album's going to be. So I kind of let myself, take the reins and come up with an idea. And once I came up with the idea of it being, what I wanted, an album that flowed in between. I didn't want there to be just a 6 or 7, 9, 10 songs where you just, that's just a song. Next song, it's where there's no. I like albums like Violator from Depeche Mode, or Operation Mindcrime from Queensryche. Those where there's a story being told, whether through dialogue or just through the choice of instruments, the way that the songs came together. So, I liked. So I just kind of followed that, really.
Interesting. One thing I'm curious about is being like an artist who, you being very independent right now. Do you have to put yourself in a certain mode in order to start like recording songs, or does inspiration kind of come naturally?
Inspiration. It's weird. I I find myself sometimes paralyzed by options when I sit in front of the screen, especially of a new project or a new album or a new song. You're staring at an empty DAW, empty project, and so I'd like to. Sometimes it comes in spurts, especially if it's like if it after about 6 months of toiling, then it becomes okay. Now I'm starting to find my rhythm here. I can go between different tracks. I can think about one track while working on another. But in the early days, it takes a little bit of time. It's like putting the car in neutral and pushing it down the hill and popping the clutch. It's sometimes you got to find that right either sound or beat or sample or something that inspires that next thing, and then that continues to evolve, and then you're I imagine it's like writing a screenplay or a book. You got to come up with the characters, and you're just kind of sketching that out a little bit, and then you can start to get into the flow of writing the story.
Work comes out of work.
Work comes out of work. Yes.
Yep. It always seems like the very beginning is always the hardest spot.
Yes, it is. But I think but that could be said for any profession and in anybody's journey. I travel a lot, and I've finished with a set, back in my hotel room, looking at the clock, know that I have a 5 a.m. flight. You just got to put one foot in front of the other, get yourself going, and then like you said, work continues to flow, and you get into a rhythm, and hopefully you come to the finish line, or at least understand that these things don't have to. That's the other thing, being so precious about things. Sometimes that's one of the things I've always been guilty of, just kind of overthinking things. But I've got some group of really talented people that I've worked with, including Glenn Nichols, who's a UK artist, goes by the name of Future Funk Squad, and La Castlevania. I worked with Teflon Sega, who's a really great artist out of New York, and we all of them, people that I worked with and people I've collaborated with over the years. They come in and they deliver, and we try to have fun with it. The last thing I want to introduce into the process is stress or some other energy that doesn't serve the band or the album or the song.
Music is meant to get rid of stress, not create it.
Yes, although I think sometimes people got to kick off. They gotta find their tipping point, and then they can release.
Yep. I'm gonna ask you like the hardest question now.
Okay,
I ask
the
every
hardest
artist.
question.
Yep. How do you know when a song is done?
That is a difficult question. I think you have to. I would imagine it's again like any other profession. You start to understand that there's 15 things that you need to do, 10 different things. Like now you listen to it and you're like, okay, this is 5 things, and you play it for somebody or I mean, I've been done and I've been done with something, and I've set it aside, and then because of the time it takes for the rest of it to come together, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to crack that one open again. Sometimes it's just been, oh, that one's done, put it aside, wait for it to find its slot in the sequence of the album, and then there's been times when I've gone to, I've sent the master out, and then and I'm like, oh shit, I need to fix this, or it's done when your manager tells you have to turn it in by this certain time. That's really the key.
I feel like I've gotten the answer one time when I get the final mix back, but it seems like that's the best way, because you work at something so long, you're gonna end up ruining it.
Yeah, and I definitely have found my way down that path a few times where I've gone back and I've listened to the demos and like, fuck, what was I thinking? I should have just released this. Yeah. But you live and learn, and you move forward.
There you go. One other question I wanted to ask you is, from researching about you and reading about you, I know that you have like a background in rock and punk and all that. What kind of got, because the first time I've heard you, the first thing that came to my mind, I'm a huge Aphex Twin fan, and
okay.
So that's maybe something that kind of reminded me of you. How did you get involved into electronic music coming from a more rock background?
Well, I really appreciated like I mean, I was a metal kid when I was growing up, and then I got into electronic music through Depeche Mode and New Order. Black Celebrations from Depeche Mode was really the album that told me that wow, this is it was very cinematic. It reminded me of like, you know, a Master of Puppets album where you have this whole intro, or you have this, you know, this pace that feels like you're going somewhere, you're going on a journey. So when I started to get into that, and then I started going to raves, clubs, undergrounds in my when after Ken and I moved to California in 89, 90, and then it becomes this whole different energy. You see the collaborative nature of a bunch of strangers come together and dancing, you know, doing something that's very primal and sometimes not always an easy thing for people to relax and enjoy themselves in an environment where they are, you know, in an illegal warehouse, you know, with no security, you know, at a map location where nobody knows where you are. You know, you got to really let yourself be, you know, vulnerable to the scene, and then you get into an environment where the music just, you know, it's like a different language. It's like you're tasting you know, a different, you know, culinary cuisine from another part of the world. You just like, oh, those spices, that flavor, that feels right to me. That's the you know, music is pretty universal. You know, a D minor chord is a D minor chord in rock, and you know, electronic music, you can phrase it, or you know, you could voice it differently by choosing different notes, but still the essence of what music is again pretty universal. So I've always just found my way to, when we started making music, it was based on electronic music, like bringing my guitar in and using guitar pedals to make a synthesizer sound like a guitar, or you know, doing some parallel processing on the drums to really make them punch and hit a little harder, sort of more like, you know, I would used to hearing at a rock show or used to hearing in hip hop or whatever. So I've had a great deal of fun living in the world of electronic music, because it's allowed me to do anything, really.
There you go. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate you.
Yep, it's a great time tonight. Is there just anything else you would like to promote for the Crystal Method?
I'm touring a lot. I'll be in. Go to thecrystalmethod.com for all the details of my touring dates. You can link to all the social media, you know, Spotify and all that stuff. And then I'll be touring. I'll be in New York was that next weekend? No, the weekend after next. I'll be in Philadelphia next weekend, Montreal, Portland, DC later in the year. I'm out there. Sometimes you might need to get a nap during the daytime. Sometimes I play sets that are a little bit later than others, but again, I touring a lot, going out and promoting the band and the new album, The Trip Home, and having a great deal of fun while I do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott.
Cheers.
Yep. Everybody, Scott of The Crystal Method. Be sure to pick up Trip Home if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.